Welcome to the Future Leader Podcast, a space for young leaders learning to build a church, honor God, and lead in the middle of a social media-driven world. We're all navigating real ministry, culture shift, and growth all together. The way we lead today shapes the kind of church and world we'll be in tomorrow. This is the Future Leader Podcast. Hey, thank you for jumping on the Future Leader Podcast today. My name is Ben, and really the heart of this content is we are trying to help equip, and also I want to bring you into conversations with young leaders, friends of mine, people that I think are really doing great things for the kingdom of God, and bring you into conversations that are unscripted, that really for me speak to this cultural moment of there's a desperation in the kingdom of God in our world for young leaders to rise up. I think about it this way, like there's a baton being passed from generation to generation, and it is now landing on our shoulders. So this is why this exists. This is season 2. Thank you for all the love on season 1. It means the world. Our studio has upgraded because of the donations of so many countless viewers on the Patreon. We didn't have a Patreon, but I'm just grateful to be here. And let me introduce our guest today. Very first episode of season 2. This young man, minister of the gospel, father, husband, son, leads one of the most profound young adult ministries in the country. And it's not because he's lucky. We'll talk about that in a little bit. It's because he is hardworking, gifted, and anointed by God. But also, we met, I don't know, not too long ago, but he carries such a humble spirit, and one that I want to be transferred into a lot of leaders today. I think it's going to be an awesome conversation. So help me welcome to the Future Leader Podcast, Aaron Wadsworth, everybody.
Appreciate you.
We put our claps in or something like that. Aaron, thanks for doing this, my friend. I was thinking back, the first time we met would have been in Arizona.
Yep. At
that coffee and youth pastors table. Shout out Kevin Herrera. Shout out Ryan Windauer.
Yep.
And you walked up afterwards, and this is literally how the conversation went. You walked up, you go, hey man, like, started this ministry. There's like 1,000 people showing up right now. Like, what should I do? And not in like, sometimes at conferences like that, like guys are trying to flex and trying to like, they're waiting to put their response in. But it was like, I immediately sensed this, like, honestly, God's just moving and breathing. And since that day, we've become friends, and now you're out here. It's your second time out in San Diego, being a part of our young adult ministry. And
I love it.
Talk to us a little bit about the journey of Unified. Yep. How did we get to where we are today? And you have permission on this to brag, okay? Like I want you to be proud about what God's doing in your life. But talk about it.
Yeah, from the get-go, I'm just like, I think the reason I talk about it the way I do is because naturally I'm really introverted. Growing up, high school, college, I was always a little more fearful to be around a big crowd. And so that's why I'm like, this had to be God, because naturally that's not what I do or invite usually. And so, but how it all kind of came about was I graduated from Grand Canyon University in 2020, the COVID semester, all got shut down. Yeah, lobes up.
Yeah.
And it all got shut down early. Everything closed. I'm like, okay, I have a Christian studies degree and all the churches are closed. So this is great. So I kept working at the coffee shop I was at all through college. Started working at a school, just trying to make it by. And then my dad, who's the lead pastor of our church, texted me. He was like, hey, come by my office. I'm like, can we just talk at home?
Yeah.
He's like, no, come to my office. I'm like,
were you living at home at the time?
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
Yeah. I was 23. And he was just like, hey, we're hiring for a high school and young adult pastor, and the elders and other leaders think you should be interviewed. And I was like, do you think I should be interviewed?
Yeah.
And he said, I'm not saying anything and I'm not being involved.
Okay.
So then I went through the whole process, was brought on. The high school ministry was in already a pretty healthy place. And I did an emphasis in youth ministry in college. So I was like, I'm going to do youth ministry. And then he said, start the college ministry. Bear in mind, our church is 2 miles away from one of the biggest state schools in the nation, Arizona State. And we had
real Christian environment too.
Yeah. And we had no college students. We had a lot of young professionals, by a lot, I mean about 50 young professionals, at 26 to 30 range. And they're like,
I got to catch it. That was pure sarcasm.
What?
ASU is not. It's also.
Oh, I thought you meant like the city. There's a lot of.
Oh, there are, but I'm saying.
Oh, like, ASU.
I think it's like if there's a list of DGent colleges, that's
100%.
like top. there.
100%.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, even just being in the city of Tempe where Arizona State is, you're like, yeah, this is dark.
Yeah.
But where were we at? Oh, yeah. So they were like, yeah, we want it to be a college ministry, though, not young adult. And so we made it pretty firm that it was 18 to 24. And they're like, start it. So my first ministry job was to start a college ministry at a church that
Okay.
historically hadn't had many college students. And I was like, all right, just after COVID, rolling with it. And I just was like, I want to create something healthy, something that students will come to and just feel really safe by, but know that there's a culture to grab here. I didn't know what to do. And I put 10 chairs out for our first night.
Come on.
And
Look at the faith.
yeah, yeah. That's the thing. It hasn't been built on me always putting the most chairs out. Put 10 chairs out. We had 30 people show up, and I was like, what is going on? All college students. And then we're in year 5 now. I'm jumping super quick. There's a lot happened. We're at year 5 now, and our fall launch this last semester, we had 2,100 students.
Unbelievable.
And now every week we have about 1,700.
Yeah, Aaron is a low key killer in this. You know, and I say it because like, and I talk openly on this podcast a lot around like, there's such a tension and pressure especially when God breathes on something with social media to like, to broadcast, to you know, try and like, you know, roll it into influence it. And one of the things I've just loved about you is like, you probably have one of the largest young adult ministries in the country on a weekly basis. This isn't like a one-off event. This is like a weekly gathering. And when I dig into it with you on like how it's worked, how it's growing, things like that, and then the spirit you've maintained through it, is what's fascinating me about you and why I'm attracted to your voice in this space. Because I think a lot of people would desire to see the outcome you have, but we know this to be true. You know, you don't just show up one day and there's 2,000 college students living there. Like, jump into a little bit of I know you said I'm gonna fast forward through 5 years right now, but like, jump into, in those 5 years, grab a key. Was there a moment of breakthrough? Was there like, it was this friend group. It was when we started doing this thing. Like, if you kind of deconstruct it now, can you see God's hand along the way and like moments that open doors as it grew? Or does to you it just feels like I've been on a roller coaster and God's just doing something, I'm here to hang?
Those definitely key moments, but I mean, we sarcastically just joked about, oh, the 10 chairs, like so much faith. Like,
yeah,
that's why I'm just constantly always just like, God, I don't know what is going on, but I'll be ready, because I've been like that all the time. And it's not me having a low expectation of God. I just personally, I've always just been like, that is no way. There's no way I want this to happen, but there's no way. The third year, at the end of the third year, we were in this amphitheater in our student center. It was a max, like 430 people in that room. We were pushing 600 in there. Like, not good. Extremely sweaty.
Yeah.
Gross. And I've naturally tried to gravitate toward having friends and people in ministry that will be like, it's time to do this now.
Yeah.
Because I
feel like that's not your inclination.
I have like a deep inclination all the time that is, if I do this, then it's not this anymore. This is what they've been coming to, and they won't come anymore. And so I was always pushing back to move to like our main sanctuary in our church, because I was like, it just won't feel like us. We're very simple. We try and make it feel small. Even though there's a lot of people, it won't feel small. All these types of things. Pushed it back for a year, and then it went from 600 people to the first night in the main sanctuary we had 1,200. So we doubled in 1 week. And I was like, okay, this is really odd. But I think the clear things that happened in between was God provided the right people and the right volunteers to show up who were just in love with the church. And it's been hard, because there's not been much context for me to go off to talk with other pastors who have done this, because a lot of the other massive young adult ministries are young adult ministries, not with churches.
Sure.
So it's just been trying to figure that out, showing the coffee things that were you were speaking at, that's all for youth pastors, and I was the only young adult guy there. So it was like, this is interesting. But I think when we've decided to do 1 to 3 things really, really well, instead of trying to constantly build, is when it felt like we started to see some traction. Basically, I was 2 years in, and I'd been running and gunning for 2 years, trying to do things almost every night, and was at a pastor's gathering, and this pastor was praying for people, and just walked up to me, put his hand on me, and just said, I think God is telling you the time for building is done. It's time to enjoy it. And that's carried on for 3 years now, where I've just been trying to figure out, okay, this next thing, will this be enjoyable? Not easy, but enjoyable. And I've just kind of chased that. I've chased health. I've chased sustainability. Chased the right people. And I think God has breathed on that.
That's sick, man. I think like we're definitely in a day and age, and I think even people who watch this are like, all right, let me jump in. Let me figure out how unified, what are the 5 keys that got unified to where it's at.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things we got to catch as young leaders is God rarely blows on like a system. He'll usually anoint a person. And I think one of the things I love about you is even up front, we're like, yeah, I put 10 chairs out. That's not my thing. I'm an introvert, you know, so, and there's definitely like a typecast of like what people would think of like a, you know, pioneering young adult leader or something like that, you know? And you're just so comfortable in who God's created you to be.
Which took a long time to get there.
I'm sure. So like, but I think this is something every young leader is going through, myself included. You're trying to figure out your voice, your leadership style, your, you know, how God's anointed and gifted you. Like what do you have to add to it? Ultimately just being secure, you know, none of us got this figured out, but like, you know, it's evident like you're settled. You're not like striving to be something. You're not. Talk about the journey of that a little bit. Like help a young leader who's on this today, like going like, man, I feel like I'm 10 different people in 10 different rooms and I don't know what, like, how did you get to this point? Obviously we're all working it through a little bit, but like, how did you get to this point where you feel pretty settled in who God's created you to be as a leader?
Yeah, for a minute it was, especially the first year, it probably felt like the people who would come in was like, this is a different type of speaker every week that I'm showing up, even though it's the same guy. And I tried to find.
You preach every week?
Preach every week. I missed 2 Thursdays last year. Okay. And that's helped a lot. But I was trying to be all the pastors that I love to listen to, which is good. In some essence, you're going to catch what you're listening to. But I realized there was this one week where I got some of the best feedback I've ever had at the end of a service. But I got home that night and I was just like, that really wasn't how I want to be, and realized I was getting applause for someone I wasn't even comfortable in being.
What, can you talk to me what it is? Like, can you give a...
I was trying to just be really, really energetic and very charismatic and probably more entertaining than I am. Which is not a bad thing. I was trying to like improve my communication style. And then I was just like, I feel like more exhausted by doing that. And I was just like, I'm just going to see what happens. Started to be myself, started to preach from sitting on a stool during the summer, and was just talking how I'm talking now. It's kind of how it usually is, and then it started to just become better and better, and I was enjoying it more, just being myself, and started to get feedback from people saying that we're here when you're like that. We want you to be like this, and that was good. So it was the right people. But yeah.
What do you think that is with even communicating? So you're speaking weekly to a ton of like kids who are actively involved in college. What are you seeing that's working? Like getting through to them? Or do you just like every week you're just kind of throwing something out there? And
No, what's working is, I mean, we're getting ASU students show up to church. I'm not kidding you. They show up on a Thursday. They'll meet me or they'll meet other leaders and they'll say, I've never been to church in my life.
Yep.
And they come by themselves, some of them. And I'll say, wow, like, why are you here? And they just say, I needed something else. And it automatically right there, it humbles me right before the service that I'm like, wow, God's already working in people.
Yeah.
This is just where he has them right now. And so this takes me back to your first question of where was the shift? The shift was when we stopped trying to make a comfortable space for non-believers and started to say, we're having people come because they want to feel something different, so let's make this different.
Huh.
And it took me back to when I was a kid. I grew up in England, which is a very post-Christian place. And when I would walk home from school, I would always walk through this area where this huge cathedral was, this beautiful thing that looked nothing like any other building. And I would go through that way on purpose because I would want to pop my head in, feel like I'm somewhere that I'm usually not, and then leave. Read up all about that, and all the architects behind those big cathedrals, that was their purpose. It was, let's make a building where it feels outside of everything else. And so I got pushed back at first when we started making the top of our service was a time of prayer with each other. So before any worship, before anything else, someone comes up and says, these are the things we need prayer for. Pray with the person next to you. And I got pushed back saying, what about the non-believer who's never been in church? Yeah. The student that's in the middle of this party stage and they'll feel awkward. I'm like, I think they want to feel awkward.
It's a great thought, yeah.
And so we kept doing that, and students after would be like, wow, I've never experienced anything like this. So I think the fear of trying to make an atmosphere that feels comfortable for non-believers released, and we made it that it was, this is something that you've not experienced before. And right from the get-go, it taught our leaders to be like, hey, if you're sitting next to a non-believer and you're about to pray, it's being able to lead them in that and saying, I'll pray, you can just listen. Yeah. You don't have to pray. And it helps non-believers catch that this is a culture, this is not something I can just come and sit in. Do I want to be here? So, and that gave me a lot of confidence because I was putting a lot of trust in leaders. I was putting a lot of trust in these volunteer college students to say, this is what we're going to try and do. Yeah. And then it gave me freedom to be who I was. So.
I think that's a key. I'm really into, as I talk to, especially leaders older than me, which I think is wise. Like, I think guys like our dad and even guys who've been doing it for a long time, it's often funny how maybe guys our age, because we weren't alive or ministering in different eras, this is like all we're seeing in front of us, is we can have this like bias or distaste for like a way things used to be done, and I think even in my world, a lot of times it was like, we were in the season where it was just like absolutely destroying like seeker sensitive stuff, or like, I think what you're talking about, right? Yeah. And I think what's the term for it? Like chronological snobbery or something like that is like to look down upon, but we weren't alive in that. And I think those guys were operating with what they had in front of us, 100%. Just like we are. Yes. So there's a grace for that. Yep. I oftentimes I've seen this happen with a lot of young adult things though, where it's like, they try and swing the pendulum so far where like they just become like a 1990s Presbyterian church again, and it's like, guys, we've already been there before, we know what happens, and then it swings back. But I think what I'm trying to find for ministries is like, what's the sweet spot where we have this beautiful moment where we literally can go watch content from the 90s and from the 80s and read from this, we can have the whole body of work up until this point and go, what is the sweet spot? I think in missiology, like how we reach people, but also what's the sweet spot in our context? So for you, you're going, you got to be highly aware. You have kids who are coming from a frat house, to kids at a Christian university at GCU, kind of worlds colliding a little bit. And also like in a region where, Turning Point headquarters are in Phoenix. It's become now like this hub of like conservative Christianity, and like, so it's a unique, so you're finding your voice in it. And I think what you're getting to, I think, is another thing. What is the purpose of these gatherings? And is there an aspect of it that is to reach the lost? Yes. 100%. But is that the main reason we're here? No. The main reason we're here is to honor God, to then equip His saints, and then to reach the lost. Yeah. And I think you found like a really cool way of doing that, even in the front part of it. Is there any like other things like that in your gathering that you're like, oh no, we've just to be authentic to who we are, and like, so you pray, like, I think it's a great handle for guys, like, any other moments, obviously maybe in your teaching?
In terms of the teaching, it's let me make sure I'm actually speaking to things that they're asking. Yeah. And so recently we started a thing that's every other Monday night, called it Credo, because we wanted the Latin word for believe. Yeah. It's from the Apostles' Creed. And we were just like, I get hundreds of emails weekly of deep, deep questions, from biblical questions, theological questions, cultural questions. And I was like, I want these to keep coming. And so every other Monday night now we're like, hey, show up and I'm going to try and answer one of these and we'll go each week. But I think what college students are so drawn to is that I want to go to a church where I'm going to hear answers from my pastors on these things that I'm asking. And I don't have to go to TikTok and YouTube. Not that those are bad resources from people who probably have a lot of good things to say. But we started to see the traction when it was, oh, this has just happened, or this is a big topic in terms of biblical debate right now. Aaron will probably speak to it in the next couple of weeks.
So would that like everything from politics to
I'm not gonna
like cultural things to or
I always give the biblical perspective of whatever they're asking.
yeah.
So I've never up front said this is where we stand as a church politically, except on harder things.
Yeah.
But like we get questions in, like, so this next Monday, a question I've been getting a lot is, how can we restore Black dignity to the church? And then on the other side, it's the other swing of things, the opposite way. We have a lot of students that move to Arizona that are from backgrounds of attending all Black churches.
Sure.
And so they move to Arizona now and they come to Unified and they're like, this is close to that. There's a lot. And they start asking questions like this. And I'm like, I want to speak to this. I can get coffee with you, which we will. Yeah. But also come on a Monday night and we'll do it collectively. So the first one we had 200 students show up on this every other Monday night gig. And we have students standing up, giving their response. And I'm sitting on a chair like this on the stage. Yeah. Just letting it happen. Yeah. So, yeah, what exactly was your question? I'm sorry.
No, I think I answered it. Great. I was just asking the nature of the question. So I'm just trying to grab things. So like, you stopped trying to make the gathering super attractional to the non-believer. You said, let's have it feel authentic, which I don't mean to say you're not reaching lost people. I'm with you 100% because I'm like, man, if the gathering they walk into feels like a frat party, but like you just can't have sex.
Well,
like it's a different thing, right? Like we try and make it like a concert, except you can't drink here. Yeah. And I think that whole thing is like, it's just not helpful now. As much as I understand why that was a tactic for a while, because you had these millennials who were coming from these like their grandparents' church that just felt like completely culturally irrelevant, and you know, but you're finding your sweet spot in it, and then you're saying like we're speaking to real questions they're asking, like literally. Talk to me about a little bit, because I know a lot of guys here are like leading young adult ministries or youth ministries. Aaron's way of recruiting and building a team, like what does that look like for you when you're thinking of? Because obviously you can't do something like this alone, right? So like, talk to us a little bit about team. Yeah,
our team right now, so yeah, we have about 1,500 to 1,700 students that come every week. Our team is about 95 to 100. Okay. Which in scale of that doesn't feel like that many compared to what we need. But building a team, we have students show up, and as one thing that grew our team and grew our culture within our team was we made a leadership expectation commitment, basically, that they had to sign to, for lack of better words. And it was kind of moral expectations, but not with this hardcore, like, if this goes wrong, you're off. But we made it very clear. And the feedback from that was, well, I've never had to do something like this as just a volunteer. And that attracted more people. And so building the team, I didn't just look for the most talented, even though there was a lot of those. It was looking who just loves this church, loves this place, looking for deeper community and serving, invited them in. But also finding the influential ones. So this girl, her name's Liv, she was probably one of our first ASU students that would come. And she was on the ASU dance team, knew a lot of the athletes, was very well known because she's extremely loud, extremely extroverted, amazingly good at talking to anyone. And I was hearing about her, and so my wife and I just got behind her and we were like, hey, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And within a month, she had the whole of the ASU dance team that would cover 2 rows. Wow. And she wasn't officially a leader yet and on our team, but we empowered her, and then she said, hey, I want to come on leadership, and so do these 3 other girls. And so we brought them on. And so I guess that's like just catching the rhythm of the people who are coming and then inviting them in and letting them be a part. But I wish I had this elaborate thing. Like, it's something that I think gets hard for me, being authentic in that, is getting a lot of people asking like what we're doing, and I don't think we're doing things much better than anyone, actually. I just think we're trying to do it healthily, trying to do it humbly and consistently. I wrote something down a couple of years ago where I was like, I hope, it's a bad word for it, but I said, let's be a boring ministry, not boring in what we do, but consistent, that students feel comfortable and know what they're going to bring their friend to.
Very good. Yeah.
And it's that we're going to pray at the beginning and pray for each other. We're going to worship, and this is how we're going to worship. Aaron's going to speak from the Bible here, and I know what to bring them to. And that's why we go through a book of the Bible. We've been in Romans since the first week of the school year, and we're still in Romans. And I do that not to be, we're now, because the wrong way is topical, it's because I was like, let me just create something that they know exactly the scripture I'm going to be going through. They can prepare themselves and be like, is this the right week for me to bring this person?
Yeah.
So that's what we've been doing.
It's so sick.
Yeah.
I just hope it gives some guys the release to stop trying so hard.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like effort, like it's building ministry, but like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of the things, if I could just sum up like kind of your, and I want you to do this as well, but like, man, there's a deep care for people and a reverence for what God's doing. Yeah. And you're aiming to keep it simple. And I think the cool thing with simple is it's maintainable for a lot of years, right? So like, I think some of the issues is like when you're trying to pull off a conference every week, level like, set and every church's got different, but I have friends in young adult ministry who are crushing it, and it's a completely different feel and vibe than what you guys are doing, Yeah, for sure. But I wanted to highlight you because I'm like, this is one of those beacon ministries, I think, in the country right now that maybe isn't getting as much light on it, which is cool. I know you're like, yeah, whatever, I don't care, But I hope it can become somewhat of a model for a lot of these churches that are in college towns as well, where there's a real beauty to the simplicity of it. I had you come, and we'll kind of wrap with this a little bit, but I had you come and speak to our youth team. This would have been last October or so. Yeah. And you were talking about like your journey of becoming a healthy leader. Talk to us about that a little bit, because I think that's going to be super helpful for someone to grab.
Yeah. I mean, the first encouragement I would just give to someone maybe that's listening is, I promise you, and you would say this about you as well, if God can use me, I promise you, he can use anyone, especially in this realm of things. I was extremely, extremely insecure. I went years, even into my marriage, I hadn't showered with the bathroom light on for 7 to 8 years at a point in my life. Huh. I quit basketball when I was doing pretty well because I was just extremely insecure, a lot of imposter syndrome. My dad is a very energetic, awesome guy to be around that people just love, and he's so fun and so funny. And I felt the polar opposite to him. And so I just think back and it makes me very emotional, because the thought of being, even in a moment like this where there's like a bright light on me, there's cameras, I'm speaking in front of thousands of people on Thursdays, really makes absolutely no sense to me still, even now. And so, yeah, I would just, and I say all that to answer your healthy leader question, and it was, I got so comfortable in that God chose me, because I didn't choose it, and I wouldn't have. It just made me, it humbles me every time, because every Thursday I'm like, if just Aaron, without the Spirit of God in me, could make the choice here, I wouldn't do this.
There's no way.
So the healthy leader in me was when I started to take this perspective out of my mind that it was, let me try and build a tower And I didn't come up with this, but it was, let me not try and build a tower and tend the garden that I'm in instead, which is myself. I'll look in this corner. This corner has some weeds right now. Over here, this area of me is okay. I can neglect that for now. Focus on this area and figure this out. Run after that. This will be okay for a while. But a tower, you're just trying to, and it comes from a good heart with the whole, like, let's build brick by brick. That's a big phrase. But brick by brick, it's going to fall down eventually if there's one thing that's off balance. But in a garden, it's things that don't need as much attention right now will be okay for a time.
Yeah.
Because this is what's more important. That's what I started to do in me. That meant physically. I meant emotionally. I meant in my marriage and my friendships and in everything. And I just wanted to be very authentic about that with college students. And so I've been very open on stage, not to a point where I'm being overly authentic, but being clear in that this is where I'm at, this is what I'm going to lead from, this is why we're in this scripture, and just being honest about that. And so, I can say very confidently that I'm doing exactly what I'm meant to be doing, because I know that I wouldn't be if it was just down to me. Yeah. And so I'm confident in that.
I think the lie is to get a guy to forget that. And that's where that line goes from healthy to unhealthy in my mind, is when you start thinking, I did this, or and everyone's gonna have different inclinations and temperaments and personality types. And I think one of the things I'm more and more aware of seeing the church at large is how God will use so many different shapes and sizes to get what he needs done. And I think you're a beautiful picture for a lot of guys of, hey, maybe God's trying to use the actual you, the healthy you that works on themselves and isn't trying to be somebody else. And maybe that dream, ministry or opportunity, whatever the thing is in your head. Like, I think sometimes we think we have to be somebody else to get to that. And I think, let's commend you. It's like, I think an understanding you have whenever you're healthy is like, you're not seeing this as like, oh, this is a 4-year period of my life or 5-year period of my life, and then it's the end of it. I think you're looking at your life, down the road going like, no, I want to be a better husband, a better leader, better preacher, at the end of this thing than I am right now. And to get there, I can't neglect things in my life now because I have ministry to do or because this is one area that's good, So let's close with this thought, because I think we've covered a lot of things kind of sporadically, but as condensed as you can, I know this is not your style to be like this, but as condensed as you can to a young adult pastor watching, what would be your word of encouragement to this generation of college students in building a young adult ministry and pastoring them? Like what would be the unified key, the thing you're like, this, like, get this, like, work on this, this is a huge thing that's helped us try and help somebody out with that.
Yeah, there's a number of things. I think it's just being hyper aware of what the students are going through that's showing up. I mean, we had a year where this was not expected, but what we were experiencing was a lot of students had now come to college and maybe they were the youngest out of their siblings. And now that they're the last one of their siblings to be out of the house, their parents were divorcing. I'm not in 1 year.
That's fascinating. Yeah.
We learned of probably 10 to 15 of them in the space of a few months, and we were like, let's take time to pray to this. And we specifically prayed on that every single Thursday from the stage and then in the seats.
Very cool.
And in the year later, we saw 6 marriages that were divorced, not just like not doing okay, that were divorced, come back together and reconcile.
Wow.
And that's but we wouldn't have been able to even be a part of that. Maybe God would have done that anyway. But being hyper aware of what's going on and getting to be a part of that, then those students were the ones who were like, you should come to this, because they hear what little things are and big things are in my life, and they will pray to it and invite the whole room to pray into it. And so let's say that. And then also just to release pressure from yourself. This generation of college students especially dying to know more about Jesus without them even saying it. And it takes I said it at the beginning, but it releases so much pressure when we're meeting students showing up because they really want to know more. And that just makes me think God and the Holy Spirit is already working these people. And so I would say you got to give the gospel every single week. We've had, since September 8th, every single week at Unified, we've had students be saved and baptized and given Bibles, to a point where it's these students who we're giving them Bibles and they say, what should I read? And I'll be like, start in John. And they're like, what do you mean? What's John?
Yeah.
And it's like, let's go.
Yeah.
Those are what I would say. And just do things uniquely to you. Do things that match you as the leader and do it well and have fun with it. And don't be afraid to mess up. Do things that are awkward. Do things that are really excellent. And just find an amazing balance. And don't give up. I almost gave up the first 2 years multiple times. But I didn't. Because I remember saying prayers. Sorry, this is a long answer to that.
No, that's great.
I remember saying prayers to God where I was just like, I feel like you've put something in my life that if I don't do this, I've really got nothing else. I had written down prayers where I was saying, God, all I've ever known is you. I've been in church my whole life. I got baptized when I was 8 years old. All I've ever known is you. How can I speak to students that have never known you until now? Like, how does my authenticity even help that? And just had moments where God would just clearly say to me, but that's what I had for you.
Yeah.
And be that. And so, I don't know, I feel like you encounter students all the time that are maybe trying to twist their story and their testimony to be more powerful, and I did that for so long. And then when I just started to be completely comfortable in exactly what my story has been, students were impacted by that, even though their story was completely different to mine. So, yeah, do it healthy, do it long, do it loyal, and don't look back. Just keep moving forward.
I love it. Aaron, this has been sick.
Yeah.
Thank you. I hope it's helpful for some people.
I hope it was helpful and not just this guy just...
No. This is the point of it.
Hasn't done much.
No. There's so much in there that's beautiful and helpful, and it's why I'm having you here today. I believe that the future leader is one that is a lot like you, and that's why I wanted to make sure a lot of guys. So ways to find you, Unified on.
Yeah, Unified.
The first
College.
season of this podcast, I did none of this stuff, so I'm trying to get better at it. So where can they find your guys' stuff?
Instagram was where I have everything. Is
Okay.
Unified College. And we don't post our services, our sermons, not because we just haven't got around to it. We probably will at some point.
Yeah.
But if you're ever in Phoenix, Arizona area,
Aaron's a phenomenal preacher. Make sure you invite him out to your next young adult night. You got to do it. He'll crush it. He's about to preach tonight to ours. So, hey, thank you for hopping on. Can't wait to see you guys next week. This has been the Future Leader Podcast.